How's it going? My name is Nick, and I just want to say first, I appreciate you. Thank you for subscribing to Roll Coverage. It really helps us out a lot. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do. Otherwise, just sit back and get ready. It's time to Roll Coverage.
Hey, I thought it was all over.
Nope. They Roll Coverage.
Do not follow these guys. By the end of this video, you need to make sure you're subscribed to them, period. I don't care what you say. They are about to give you some hard truths as Panthers fans that we need, and to be honest, some of us aren't willing to accept regardless. Of course, I'm going to stop. We might pause it, might talk a little bit about my feelings as well, but I really want to get their thoughts, so I'm going to let them kind of talk one at a time, and then I'll hop in there.
Yo, what's going on, man? First and foremost, welcome to the Black Cat Panther podcast, man. Y'all come on in the building, wipe your feet off on the mat. Y'all already know what time it is. Look, the boys are in the building. Fellas, what's going on with y'all today?
What's the deal?
And y'all already know what it is. What's up?
Man, look,
Before they even get into it, again, like I said, make sure you are subscribed to them. This is going to be a great episode.
I'd like to talk about a few things, man, that's been on the hearts of Panther fans around here, as well as I've been seeing everywhere.
I'm ready.
Whoa there.
Now, entered last season, we had a young quarterback that came in the building.
With the first pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Carolina Panthers select Bryce Young, quarterback, Alabama.
And the season did not go as we thought it should have went with a number one overall pick, as well as the team being the way it is.
The Carolina Panthers are by far the worst team in the NFL.
But I like to take this time to talk about why are so many people so upset about what we have here at the quarterback position. Talk to me, fellas, man.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of different things. I think that these guys are going to kind of put it in the right perspective. I haven't completely finished their entire podcast, but I have at least seen this small clip that I'm be bringing you guys. So again, I'm going to kind of let them talk, but everybody kind of knows we need to see it on the field. We need to see production. Last year, our quarterback only missed one game, so it's not an excuse. There's no, we need to forget the first year or anything like that. The dysfunction came from ownership down, not from coaching down or anything like that. So the ownership really needs to take the responsibility of last year on top of Scott Fitterer, on top of Dan Morgan, who was Scott Fitterer's assistant GM. So we really kind of kept the same pseudo GM, just with a little bit of a change. So it's going to be an interesting year for the Carolina Panthers, and again, I really want you guys to understand what they think.
How y'all feeling about what we got versus what we should have, and why are people so wild and outraged at what we got in Bryce Young?
I mean, Q, I got a lot of reasons. I feel how I feel. I'm just disappointed. I'm just disappointed that, what was advertised to us ain't necessarily what we got. Now, what I thought we had ain't quite that either. But I never thought he was what the media was trying to say as far as Bryce Young. But I can't say that I thought he was 2-15 bad. I will say that. So it's a lot of different things,
I would agree. I was one of those people that I did want Stroud. I do like the big, tall, fast quarterback. I understand that's what you need in the NFL nowadays. Very few small quarterbacks really get away with it. But when we were given Bryce, I kind of accepted that. It wasn't really until we found out that David Tepper vetoed the decision of Frank Reich, Josh McCown, and Deuce Staley, the three fired coaches from the last regime, or at least the first three fired coaches from the last regime. So with that in mind, I kind of went back and I'm more, Bryce needs to prove a little bit more because of how bad last year was. If we go into this year with all of these new tools and everything, and he's still not able to produce, then he truly might not be a NFL level quarterback. And unfortunately, we mortgaged the entire franchise and we're going to have to suffer for a decade. We could also hit for, the perfect offense, and Bryce could lead us to, a Super Bowl win this year. Obviously, that's, the drugs speaking, but regardless, there's so much that went into it, and that's personally where my feeling is. Bryce was put into a situation where he was told that everything was going to be okay, and then the owner just meddled every step of the way. So that really sucks, my guy.
And I'm sure we'll get into that. But how you feel, Go?
Well, MDJ and Q, I think it's a compilation of reasons. It's almost like a melting pot of reasons. You know what I'm saying? Throw this in, throw a little bit of that in. You got a gumbo, if you will, of reasons.
Wake up! Wake up! Wake up!
You can go back to the owner going to the Super Bowl and going against everybody else's wishes, everybody else that he was advised not to do, everything he was advised not to do, he did. So that was one of the biggest mistakes.
Thank you, my guy. We need to place the blame where it needs to be. Ownership, period. I don't care what anybody says. You can bash Frank Reich all you want. Again, I'm the Frank Reich apologist, apparently, but I think it's just because everybody blames it on the coach that showed up to a roster that was basically built and then had his coach or his quarterback vetoed. And then after that point, you're like, well, this isn't really my team anymore. What's the point? I'm basically a pawn until you decide to get rid of me. And that's where everything just goes down. Obviously, he could have been a more adult in that situation and handled it better, but I don't think many of you could have been in Frank's position and handled it as well as he did when it comes to the professionalism. Of course, when it comes to the on-field, most of us can probably get away with winning an NFL game as a head coach, but actually, I bet you there's a bunch of players that think people couldn't. But regardless, it's going to be an interesting rebuild regardless.
To me, the guy was told not to pull a quarterback that year, and he said, "Screw it, I'm going to do it anyway." So it was more to me. That was one reason. The way it was done, the way he came about to be our starting quarterback. You know what I mean? Not even to mention the compensation that we gave up to move one to do his the owner's wishes. So that's one of the things I'm looking at. And and there's more. So as we talk about it, I get into a couple more.
Okay. I think for me, they sold him to be like the greatest, the smartest quarterback we ever seen.
Absolutely. That S2 test is something that will come back to bite Bryce in the ass. I did an entire video of why I think Bryce was the first example of the S2 test really helping somebody get drafted in a place where they shouldn't have been drafted. Obviously, it's what they can produce on the field, not what they can do in a test room. Obviously, Bryce produced well in college, so I'm not saying that he should have been a fifth-round pick. But what I'm saying is that S2 test really shifted the narrative for a lot of people and is the reason why Bryce went 1 instead of 2. So,
One thing that he do is he processes. Number one, he focuses on reading defenses and coming out and being that guy that's the smartest person on the field. And we saw him struggle at times last year. And I think people get a perception of us when they hear us talk on lives. They get, oh, these guys hate Bryce. Oh, these guys don't like him. They don't understand that the team was bad. They don't understand that.
Thank you, my guy. Preach it from the mountaintop. The personnel was garbage in preseason, in week 1, week 2. So I don't know how a bunch of y'all thought it was 10-win team or a playoff winning team last year.
The number one thing is they don't want to hear us critique Bryce. They don't want to, because they felt like the team was so bad last year that everything that they saw from the quarterback position is off limits. And you shouldn't be able to talk about what you saw.
Yep, and that's the big pushback that I've given to people that said, oh, we just got to throw away the first year. I cannot do that. Bryce Young played all but one game. Bryce Young played all but one game. He's not coming back from an injury. He's not coming back from the coach trying to pick up a waitress at a Hooters like Trevor Lawrence. He's dealing with a meddling owner that built a situation that he had to endure. That's on David Allen Tepper, not on Frank Reich, not on Thomas Brown, not on Evero. They didn't build that roster. They didn't assemble that crew. They didn't tell Frank to go outside of his comfort zone and create this weird Hunger Games stuff that we heard about. So, yeah, I can't give it to that, but I also can't give Bryce 100% of the blame. There's obviously a lot of blame to go around to a lot of people, but David Tepper deserves the most.
But in a season where I saw a terrible Carolina Panthers team, I saw even worse quarterback play, where we saw different quarterbacks go to other franchises and uplift them. We saw other quarterbacks up until this point, like I said, the single most important position in football is the quarterback position. It doesn't get any better than having somebody that can take your team and uplift an entire franchise. So we thought getting number one, we were going to get a guy that was going to uplift the Carolina Panthers and take us to the next level.
And that's okay. That's okay that we wanted that. He's the number one pick. We traded a lot for him. That's what you get when you spend so much for somebody like that, and especially so high. So I don't think that's wrong of the fan base to want that or to ask that in return for such a large haul of picks and assets that we gave up for that. I'm expecting Bryce to be the quarterback away that we were told. But again, if you were here and you were listening to the channel, you knew that I wasn't buying that shit. I'm still not buying it this year, so.
But instead, we ended up going through rough patches that we thought the quarterback added on to. Like, because let me tell you something. If you got good quarterback play, it makes the receivers look better. It makes the defense look better. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, the running game is going to look stronger with better quarterback play, because they get more opportunities to get at it, carry the ball more. There's less opportunities around for guys to look terrible because your quarterback is shining and uplifting everybody and making them look better. Like Chuba Hubbard had 900 yards. Had we had a quarterback that looked decent last year, Chuba Hubbard probably been over the 1,000-yard mark. And why I'm saying that is because, number one, we had a team that was predicated to the run last year. The number one thing was power run. And we were so predictable that they were basically daring us to throw the ball last year. Just about every time you look. So this is why I'm saying what I'm saying.
And not just that, but the part that he's not going to go look at, people always go to the, Bryce Young was so bad, but yet he's got a 19-minute compilation for the NFL for his top plays. If you actually go look at that top plays, go see how many times he throws to a dude that doesn't have anybody within 5 yards. That's not an open receiver. That's a wide open receiver at the NFL level. So him hitting those targets is a gimme. So that's not a top play. They just happen to put that in there to make Bryce Young not look bad. If we really went through his true top plays, it's not 19 minutes worth of it, period. It's basically part of the Packers game, and that's about it. He made a few other ones, of course. There's the one that, of course, DJ Chark dropped out of the backfield or dropped out of the end zone. He had some moments, don't get me wrong. And again, I think he can grow. But to look at last year and think that was worth a first-round pick, and not only that was worth a first-round pick, it was worth the haul that we gave up to get the first-round pick. It wasn't. Like I've said time and time again, he wasn't even as good as Daniel Jones's rookie year. So if you think Daniel Jones is garbage, then you must think that Bryce Young is the little mucus at the bottom of the trash can that you haven't cleaned up in a year.
But I'm gonna give the fellas their opportunity to get into it as they do. But people think that I hate this young fella.
Same thing. People think I hate him. I don't hate him.
It's unjust. I don't hate this young fella. What I'm saying is, for the last couple of years in this league, it's been a quarterback-driven league. And if you're inept at the quarterback spot, your entire team looks worse than what it actually is. So that's all I'm starting off saying. But y'all go ahead if y'all got something.
Yeah, and
by the way, you couldn't have said it better. I would agree with that. I feel like the quarterback is really what drives the team. And for example, if I'm going to go pick the divisions, I'm going to go pick quarterbacks. Like, say, for example, we have some people like this person, Clubber Lang. Bryce Young going to have a 4,500, 28 touchdown, 4 interception season, and I'm going to cry. If that happens, sure. I mean, that's a massive turnaround. But you're talking about him throwing more than he threw pretty much any other time in his career. I think he didn't even throw that much at Alabama, now that I think about it. So let's go look it up. Bryce Young, Alabama stats. 1 year, 2,800 yards, 11. Oh, that's the Panthers. I was like, what the heck? I also saw 2023, and I'm like, no. Okay, so 1 year, in 2021, he threw for 4,800 yards, 47 passing touchdowns, 7 interceptions. The 2022, the year that we drafted off of him, he was 3,300, 32 and 5, with 49 rush attempts for 185 yards. Okay. Not the worst thing in the world, but that was his best one in college. So obviously we could see that he could do it at a pretty high level. But at the same time, there's a difference between being able to execute in college. There's a difference between being able to execute at the NFL level. Zach Wilson could execute at the NFL level, can't really execute at the college level, cannot execute at the NFL level. So there's I wish college translated directly to the NFL, but that's unfortunately not how that works.
And just to touch on what you were saying as far as the team not elevating, I think a lot of people forget before we got Bryce Young, we was 7-10. All right, I think that's.
Yep, we had Steve Wilkes. There's a different air in the building at that time, though.
Why when we got a quarterback, we was thinking, hey, a quarterback, we could compete for this division. We competed for the division the year prior. We competed for the division the year prior. And that was a season where we was heavily leaning on nothing but the run. We had mediocre quarterback play, right? So then you input a quarterback that's the shortest quarterback ever. So he already got stuff stacked up.
And again, one of the other things we found out is he packed on artificial weight for the combine. There's literally reports from multiple people stating that as soon as he got his weight, he immediately ran to the bathroom. And that he looked ill. He looked like he had a bunch of extra fake weight on him. So if he's playing closer to 170, 180, and people are freaking out about this picture, oh wow, he's 185 now, congrats guys. That's still not really quarterback level, and just because you have a good arm in one picture, that's something. I think it's also funny that the first major video we got of Xavier Leggett catching a ball, they refuse to record who threw it. They refused to tell us who threw it, or again, released a video of who actually threw that ball. So I think that's interesting, and I think that was an Andy thrown ball, but that's just me.
Against them. And then you put them on a team that's 7-10, you think, like I said, you're not thinking it's gonna go 2-15 bad. So my biggest thing is just a disappointment on that. We shouldn't, if we was gonna take a step back, it shouldn't have been that far of a step back.
Yeah, but my pushback to that is if you looked at that roster, okay, I mean, I like Luvu, I of course like Brian Burns, but when you go to the offensive side of the ball, our leading receiver was Adam Thielen, a 33-year-old wide receiver. We had DJ Chark, a retread from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Laviska Shenault, another retread. We brought Miles Sanders in, which we should have known. He was behind the Eagles' offensive line the year before, and then came into ours where our offensive line was just destroyed. Of course, all the issues with the offensive line. There was just a lot of problems. And then as the year progressed, like I said, I think it was week 3 or week 4 is when Frank Reich was talking about those meetings behind the scenes and how stuff really isn't going good. And then by week 11 or 12, we have that Hunger Games report telling us all the crazy stuff that was happening behind the scenes with backstabbing and all that. So the turmoil for the Panthers never stopped. The minute we drafted Bryce, it was turmoil because the decision to draft Bryce was a veto from the owner against the football people. Obviously, right now, the owner is trying to do all he can to bandage over that massive wound that he created.
And I can put that on his shoulders. Now, was the coaching bad? Yes. Was the offensive line bad?
Coaching was absolutely bad. Offensive line was bad. Absolutely.
One as good as the year before. So I'm gonna say yes. Defensively, we were what, number 5? I may be off on the exact statistics, but we were a good defense, even with poor quarterback play. And once again, that shouldn't be a 2-15. But when you have a defense that stays on the field and a quarterback who can't convert on third down, I mean, that's the kind of results you get. For me, I never thought Bryce was a gunslinger at Alabama. I never thought he could drive the ball down the field.
Thank you. He's working within the system that he had. He had literally all NFL linemen in front of him. He had NFL wide receivers, NFL corners protecting him while he's on the bench, all that other stuff. So he had NFL people all around him. And when you get to the actual NFL, you're seeing that the guys in your team, Xavier Leggett and at that time, Chark and Laviska, aren't even as good as your college teammates. So it's a big change. He went from top tier everything to the bottom of everything. And then, of course, the owner makes the entire locker room fall to pieces. So
consistently, but I felt like he can. Once again, I showed a video where he had a weapon. He was doing that. But what people fail to realize at Alabama, you got 4 or 5 star recruits all over that damn field.
Exactly what I just said.
We don't have that here. We moved up and gave draft pieces away to get this guy. We gave away our one of our best receivers in Panther history away for this guy. So for him to come in here and to underperform, I think it's frustrating to people. And, you know, as far as on here, before we got Bryce, I was sitting here saying he won't nothing. He won't shit. You know, I don't want him. You know, I want a CJ.
And see, I'm kind of in the same thing. I wasn't saying he wasn't going to be shit, but the size obviously concerned me. Accuracy, I'm not worried about, but I like the bigger quarterbacks. I mean, to be honest, even when Wentz was coming out, I was okay with him going to a lot of different teams. Obviously, that proved an injury concern, but somebody like Stroud, we had to kick that stigma of the Ohio State quarterback. There was that stigma forever that they're never going to work. Justin Fields came in and he might have kind of worked. We'll obviously see this year with Pittsburgh. But CJ Stroud's the first one to really just splash and work. Now, obviously going into year 2, he could have the sophomore slump. But when you add Stephon Diggs and everybody that they've added, it's going to be really, really hard to have a sophomore slump. I think, in fact, it's the opposite, and they are going to try and contend for a Super Bowl. So, like I said, try.
But when we got him, I was completely optimistic and open-minded. I said, hey, he our quarterback now. Forget the other quarterback.
Same here. Like I said, it didn't start to really rub me the wrong way until we found out that the owner vetoed it. And if anybody wants to try and fight me on that, they tried for the longest time. Now they've just resigned themselves to say, oh, well, why does it matter? Now we have Bryce. It matters because we're in this situation and we're going through the strife that we're going through because of the owner. And nobody wants to blame the owner. They want to blame Frank. They want to blame Thomas Brown. They want to blame Brian Burns. But they don't want to blame the person that actually holds the cards.
You know, I accepted him. Now, after 2-15 during the season, I said a few things. I was frustrated just like every other fan. But, you know, like I said, it's a multitude of things that cause us to be 2-15, but you cannot ignore bad quarterback play. And the numbers do not lie as far as the quarterback play.
And I go back to...
Totally fair. Thank you, MBJ, for giving us that. I would agree with your criticism. I would agree with your concerns. Now we're going to give it to Goat to wrap this one up. Let's go.
Q's original question, where is what we were sold on. Now, I heard some people say, of course, looking at this guy, he's not a physical Anthony Richardson, 6'5", 200 and change, and this and that. You see that. You see you're not buying that. Off the rip, with your eyes, you see what you're buying. You're buying a 5'10", you know what I'm saying, minimum arm strength, this and that. So you say, well, damn, why do I want that? Because it's just like the thing that Q just alluded to. They were saying this guy gets it mentally up here. He understands the game. He's going to take that same offense that MDJ was talking about and take it to another level on a mental aspect. He's not going to throw 11 interceptions and give the game away. He's not going to make bonehead decisions on third down and whatever. He's going to be able to take your playbook, the same playbook that we always talking about, and elevate it to another level. No matter. So when people say coaching, you just talked about coaching, MDJ, that the coaching, how can the coaching be bad when you supposed to have a second coach on the field?
Thank you 1,000 times, Goat. This is the thing that I've been saying. He's a supercomputer. He's a computer. He's just so good at processing. He's going to be able to put the ball perfectly. Everything is going to be great now that we have Bryce Young. And then I get people that'll do, say, for example, this one. If this is Bryce Young's stat line in 2024, how would you define him as a quarterback for the end of the season? They're obviously putting up the stats. They're saying 3,600 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions with a 5-12 record. I'm sorry. I'm just going to put this to last year's stats, okay? So 3,600 yards, 20 touchdowns, okay? Let's go pull it up right now. Last year, these are last year's passing stats. So 3,600 yards would put him 36, 38. So he would actually be between Lamar and Geno Smith. having played the same amount of games as Lamar and one more than Geno. Geno was also 20-9. We would guess 20-12. So Geno Smith would still be better. And then, of course, Lamar would be better with 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So he would be firmly in the 17 slot in front of Gardner Minshew. Obviously, you see some other ones right here. Joe Burrow, he only played 10 games. Kirk Cousins only played 8. Herbert only played 13 and already threw 3,100 yards. So that's where he would have been last season, for example. But with his current stats, he was 20. This is only going by yards, of course, not by completion percentage, rating, or all that other stuff, because we want to go by rating. Let's go find... oh, no way. Andy Dalton is actually 27. Bryce Young is 34 with a 73.7 average rating. He only beats out Mitch Trubisky, Tyson Bagent, Daniel Jones, and Bailey Zappi. Oh, there's some more that he beats out. Oh, he beats out these ones too. I apologize. Driscoll, Simeon, Keenum. It's just some all backups. Okay, cool. I mean, the only starter that's even close to him is Mac Jones, and most of you guys hate Mac Jones. So that's an interesting one, and yeah, I would agree. Where Bryce needs to be better than 3,200 yards, he needs to be 36 or 38. He doesn't need 20 touchdowns. He needs probably 25 to 27 for me to really be on board that he's going to become a franchise quarterback. Is he a good quarterback in the NFL? Sure. Can he win you a game? Yeah. In the right situation? Absolutely. Can he win the Panthers 10 games? I don't see it yet, but I'm also going to give GOAT his time to finish, so I'm kind of going on a tangent.
You see what I'm saying? A lot of times, some people say if you don't have all that physical attribute and you got that mental to read defenses and beat that defensive coordinator on the other side of it, you got it. But there's some people got physical and they don't take the time to look at tape and read defenses and do the other things that would make them go to an atmosphere, a stratosphere of great.
My favorite player the NFL has ever put out, Michael Vick, is the epitome of that. If he would have studied the playbook and really committed to football, man, he would have been Lamar Jackson. Not like, obviously Lamar Jackson comes much later after Michael's career, but man, he could have been Lamar Jackson on steroids, essentially, or Michael Vick on steroids, just to make the analogy easier.
Beyond great, you know what I'm saying? To ascend to these higher parts. But we seen times last year that it was so frustrating, and you was like, what is Bryce doing? What is this, Frank? Is this Thomas Brown? Is this, I know I'm not seeing this right here because they couldn't even get out the huddle at times in preseason. They look lost.
Speaking of, the huddle thing is still an issue now. Dave Canales in his first OTA press conference said this.
And I'd like to see the offense's tempo coming out of the huddle to be better, attack the line of scrimmage. So that just shows me there's still a little bit of uncertainty about what we're doing, what are things called to get the tempo that we want.
So obviously that's not something that Frank did. That's obviously something that he kind of, has, or at least this offense has kind of dealt with. But one of the things I also want you to remember, the stat that Frank told us, Bryce Young took 97 or 98% of his college snaps from pistol or shotgun. So we're probably going to move to him taking them under center, which is going to lead to some issues this year. I'm calling it out right now. He took 2 or 3% of his total college snaps from center. So it's going to be interesting. Obviously he did it in high school, but again, it's different now. It's the NFL.
The armband situation. Bryce supposed to wear an armband. Supposedly he didn't want an armband. He wanted to get it through the headset. You couldn't even read pre-snap motion because they didn't have time enough from the huddle to get in the play in from the sideline to do pre-snap motion. We were getting the ball snapped 1 and 2 seconds before the play clock expired. You see what I'm saying? So that was another reason of saying I didn't get what I was sold. Because you sold me, people was calling him at one time, y'all, am I lying? The brain, right?
The brain, that was a big one. And then look at the comparison to this. Brought to us by Todd Hoffman. I hope that Bryce can turn it around the NFL. That rookie season was beautiful. The brain, who we're going to call him for this, had one game over 250 passing yards, one game in the final 10 over 200 passing yards. I'm sorry, the first game, one game over 250 passing yards. I apologize to the first one. One game in the final 10 over 200 passing yards, and 2 games in the final 9. Did he even throw a TD pass? One positive is 3 INTs, interceptions, in 275 attempts in the final 9 games, which is 1.09%. So, man, the brain was having some tough time last year.
The brain. I didn't see the brain.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't see the brain like that. So I that's another thing. I'm going. Anytime y'all come to me, I'm gonna say I didn't get what I was sold.
It's kind of like how Chicago Bears fans feel. Like here's another one. Stats for the first 10 starts. Bryce Young, 1 of 9, 61.7% completion, 9 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 40 sacks, 161 rushing yards, no touchdowns, 4 fumbles lost. Justin Fields, 2 of 8, lower completion percentage, less touchdowns, more interceptions, less sacks, more rushing yards, a rushing touchdown, and 1 extra fumble loss. And the people that will sit there and be the Panthers fans that will go after Bears fans will call Justin Fields trash, but then call Bryce Young the savior.
Somebody owe me some money back. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, damn, man. You know, I didn't. That's the way I'm feeling. The whole time, everybody know how I feel. I told these guys, just about like you just said, MDJ. I didn't necessarily want this guy because I seen what it was at Alabama. I knew what it was going to take to make this guy do what he does. You have to have an all-star plus supporting cast for him to basically be that, what y'all call game manager plus, a game manager this, a game manager whatever. That's what he is. So he doesn't uplift the talent around him. He has to have the talent around him, all the prerequisite stuff around him already. So this was not the right team for Bryce Young to go with. Like I said earlier, the owner was advised not to do that, but he did it. So here we are.
Hey, man, this is going to be the end of that portion of it. If you want to make sure to find out more information about these guys, please make sure to go follow the Black Cat Panther podcast. They are top tier. This is only the first 13 minutes of their latest episode, their Outcry episode. We're going to cut it over to something else because I want to touch on one other subject, so follow me. Okay? There's one other subject that they didn't touch on, but one that I really want to touch on, okay? I'm going to pull up some other stuff. I'm going to put this one up on the screen first, okay? This one's going to sit up here with me for a minute. People have this narrative when it comes to Dave Canales, okay? People have this narrative that Dave Canales is going to somehow take Bryce Young and take what he did with Geno and did with Baker and turn that into something that Bryce is going to be able to put on tape and be able to be like, hey, I'm a good quarterback now because of Dave, okay? Now, obviously, we can look at Geno's and Baker's stats, not anywhere close to where Bryce was. Bryce couldn't even break 3,000 yards, couldn't break 12 touchdowns. He only had 11. So, better year to year. Maybe that's just me. Maybe Dave Canales isn't the quarterback whisperer that we were sold, but if you watched our 9-part Dave Canales mini-series, you would know that. I think he can elevate. I think he can do great with his team, but obviously I'm not the only one to give pushback. I'm not the only one to think that there is a lot to solve here and that Bryce might be at the center of that. The Tepper issue is going to have to be handled at some point, but I'm going to give you guys a teaser here first because if you made it this far, I sincerely appreciate you. I think that next year, Mike Tomlin is going to be fired from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And since David Tepper is a former owner in the Pittsburgh Steelers who likes Mike Tomlin, I think he's going to go, hey, Dave Canales, you did good. I'm going to fire you. I'm going to go get Mike Tomlin, the dude who used to run the Steelers, and I'm going to go see what he could do with this because he was with them for 18 or 20 years or however the hell long Mike Tomlin's been there, forever basically. So that's going to be my little tinfoil hat theory for if Dave Canales does get replaced, who replaces him. I would expect him to at least get a second year, but hey, I thought the same thing for Frank. So My name is Nick. Hopefully you liked this. Make sure you subscribe, do all the stuff. Make sure you share us to all your friends if you enjoyed it. Otherwise, just have a great day, man. Peace.